initially our committee thought was to have a resident permit only on the, I guess it's the east side of West Street. You can share with us constructively as far as, would you like to see no parking at all between Broad and Washington?
The most dangerous spot being parked currently is between Broad and the corner of this lot. You know, parking actually on West Street directly across from our lot and up to your lot. People get super close to the stop sign, and people right at that Broad Street intersection, you know, those are super dangerous. Plus, I feel like the road gets a little bit narrow there, and obviously, you know, during that intersection. I always say, and I always try to actually observe it, the street parking, especially on the street as wide as West Street in certain points, really helps to actually slow the traffic down, especially down at that pace, which was one of those points that Greenwood Design had brought up when he was talking about parking in a small town to really, you know, encourage people to slow down. But yeah, as far as street parking, that would be, you know, my comment. It was, what was the last event we had? For the Jazz Fest. It was funny. It was the first time since I've lived in town in 5 years that we had people double parking on both sides of West Street. This is the first time I've ever seen that.
You could not get a fire truck down now.
Yeah, which I thought was a very dangerous condition.
Same thing happened on Washington Street.
Yeah.
Washington does.
Well, it always happens on Washington.
Yeah.
That's the first time
I was
ever happened on
last year,
West
like,
Street.
holy
Yeah.
smokes, I couldn't put the truck down.
I'm telling you, I have to negotiate, get vote out on
I have a question, I guess, for everyone. Your lease in paragraph 4A, I think it is, that it says that the landlord has to mutually agree upon your plan. Have you approached the
We've
landlord?
sent this to Mr. Esham as well as his son
Trust.
and attorney, and told them that this is what we intend to do. Told them that we were coming here tonight on May 14th, and I haven't heard from them. So I'm assuming, since I know both of them pretty well, that if they had a problem, they would have called me.
To ask a few questions, because I missed some things. So the day one implementation is for it to be daily usage, not just event usage, or strictly event usage?
Daily.
And daily usage with lighting till 11 o'clock, and that's pretty late immediately adjacent to residences.
Again, we can work with that, we can adjust that accordingly.
Yeah.
It will be directional towards the grass
Inward.
area
Right.
only. But that is definitely a lighting question for our electrical guy. But we could try to say we're going to have it directional.
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky, especially without having anything permanent there, like a lighting pole, to not have lighting that is up lighting, you know. And I raise it from a resident, you know, disturbance perspective, and also, you know, the dark sky, you know, which I would hope as a town we would be, you know, trying to push for. I know, you know, all the same people in town that are pushing for us, you know, and myself included, to be more environmentally conscious with how we deal with the site from a stormwater perspective, would also, you know, be advocating for that. It would be a shame if we didn't consider that. I know that makes it very tricky because light pole, I mean, we could install, you know, temporary light poles that have some elevation that at least we're down lighting. And maybe they can be operated in the sense where if the top lot is in full, we don't need to have all of those on. A little bit out of my technical expertise of how you pull that off. And another thing I have on I know you brought up the Washington Street in and out, but on day one, that West Street would still be a temporary entrance or a entrance.
That would be our entrance.
The primary one.
Yeah, and it would,
Yeah, I feel like that would require a lot of grading work just because of the height at the front of the lot there, you know, more than just putting some gravel down. And it's going to be a condition that would need to be monitored like regularly because every event that gravel is going to get moved.
So our guys will be there mowing weekly, most likely, right?
Yeah.
That-
Well, I'm thinking if it gets, I mean, you're gonna need gravel at that
Yeah.
entrance on day one, that's gonna get torn up. And then also, that gravel is gonna find its way out onto the street, every single day. And then I'm just thinking of concerns, because that is directly across from the lot, from our lot. And that's people that are gonna try to avoid that gravel, to drive around it as it's spilling out into the road and things like that. So, it might require some more intensive grading on day one at that entrance point. I would, both as a resident across the street and as a designer, think that it would be nice if we had no entrance point on the West Street side. I know that makes it tricky. Maybe it's just obviously that's the natural point from a pedestrian perspective, where you're going to want to get to the closest point to downtown. But to have, again, doing gravel there seems like the only thing that keep it not super muddy in a mud pit. The gravel is also super noisy to drive over, causes a mess there. Got people, turning in. If you do have parking on West Street, people, pulling around cars to pull in there. People are probably going to try to use that as an exit, even if it's just marked as an entrance, unless it's monitored 24/7. Puts it at a point where, effectively everybody is spilling out directly to that residential area. And it just seems so silly, because we have commercial property on Washington Street that you could have those people entering and exiting that lot directly across. And a lot that's bordered on a couple sides by non-residential lot, you take advantage of those parts of the lot, since it is an R2 piece of property to begin with, even though this use is permitted,
And just so I'm clear, because I'm not sure I got a clear answer, on delineating these spots, you are putting in those salt treated at the front, right as your bumpers, or not?
As of right now, I don't have anything defined as bumpers yet.
Okay, well, I just draw your attention to your lease in paragraph 4C. It says the tenant shall improve the leased premises with controlled entry and exit points, sufficient lighting, and parking bumpers, delineating each parking space. So I think you are required to put those in there. I think that would help my worry about just people, guy takes up 5 spaces or whatever versus whatever. But I think if you had at least the bumpers there, then I think it's required by your lease.
Probably on day one, if we don't have anything wrong, say the West Street side, what if that parking lot fills up for an event, and then you get people just pulling onto that edge of the lot? If we have, I'm sorry, the two plans here are flipped, but if you have the signage along West Street for where the parking spots are, well, we know that you have to have those in 20 feet. Well, 20 feet happens to be a parking spot, so who's to say somebody isn't just going to pull right up the curb and park it and head in? Again, obviously we say it's going to be monitored, but, parking on all of our side streets and whatnot during events clearly isn't, ever seen anybody get ticketed.
If we have no parking on West Street between Broad and Washington, West, do you see any issues with your neighbors being upset? 'Cause people assume some of the neighboring property owners, they park there, right?
Yeah, and I don't know what the regulations are exactly, because there's some rental properties along West Street there that, I don't know. You're right down the street too,
Might have the room to park. There's cars always parking lot.
There's always
All the
cars.
time.
Yeah.
They park there, I think.
And that
I'd
property
like to see
doesn't
that
have,
done.
that property doesn't have sufficient parking space for the amount of
People rent out to
units that are in there.
Like the West Apartments, second house in, on West from my end.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That might be a little tight.
yeah. And there's virtually no gravel.
I definitely would encourage no parking from,
Oh, yeah.
on West from Washington Broad, for
On
sure.
both sides of the street, there's no parking.
I do.
Yeah, for sure.
That's how I feel about it. I drive it every day, both ways, and,
I mean, but
I frequently find myself going up on the sidewalk to get space, getting around the car. I mean,
Yeah, it's just creating.
There's not enough room for parking, plus 2 cars should pass each other without it on the sidewalk, like Pete says. If you go up and down
And with out
that.
of town, people coming from out of town, they don't know what they're doing, so yeah, we get confused.
Well, and also, Billy had to put no parking signs along there because people were parking there all the time, but they were along the lot at, one point tearing things up, so that's why they put, but they still, that pushed them out into the road, I mean, but they weren't supposed to go a lot, but they were parking in the road, taking a drive lane up, essentially.
Yeah, one tire maybe on the grass, one's on the road.
Yeah, well, it's like tough to grasp because obviously you're drawing over the, what's called phase 2 proposed site plan where you have stormwater features and things like that. What I'm saying is who's to say, okay, we push people off of West Street, street parking, but then you effectively have 20 feet, between that and where you have your signage, and you get a lot full, and somebody's like, oh, well, if I just pull in there,
Yeah.
right, because you have
Parking
nothing
in the
blocking,
setback.
you have nothing blocking them from that point, and that, it's like, oh, well, I'll just pull right in here and back right out, I mean, you just know it's gonna happen.
Parking in their setback, I mean, right on West Street, yeah.
Yeah, it's pulling head on in to, so
Yeah,
that-
like you said, 20 feet,
And
that's
that's-
the way the
And
car.
and that's only came along because we don't have bumpers and stuff like that.
Well, I guess if we get to the point where the lot's full, we're gonna have to figure out a way to close it. Right, Cynthia?
We also looked at, we will look at our first event, how much parking. If we see that we need more posts along the front there, that's something on the West Street side, we can add more posts. And then to stop them from pulling up into that 20-foot buffer, we can add more posts along that area. That would keep them back. I do think, though, most people's vehicles, even if you had a curb stop, they want to go out that way, they're going to go out that way.
Well,
And
certainly during events, like the banjo thing, or whatever, what is it, event involved? What is it involved?
Fiddlers.
Fiddlers. They're gonna, you're gonna have to have some staff in there to guide and orient people. If you're gonna put your cars in there and fit the cars you wanna fit in there, somebody's gonna have to be telling them, you gotta go over here and park in this space, this part of it. You're gonna have some supervision in there because, Joe Blow's just not gonna park it. Everybody's gonna wanna park as close as they can to West Street, so they don't have to walk as far, but you're gonna have to have somebody in there really, like Mr. Woodson says, delineate parking spots. If you want to make the most out of your 105 parking spots, you've got to put them in there, like it's supposed to be, or you're going to end up with a mess.
And there's always going to be parking at the fire hall. People will still park there. So there's parking throughout town. We're just trying to give a little more.
No, we get it. We got that. What I'm saying.
I understand.
But I'm saying, when you got the amount of people that come to these events, I mean, you can't trust them to go in there and orient their cars like they're supposed to be and park properly so that you can put the maximum amount of parking in there that you want to make the thing pay off and do what you're trying to do. You're going to have somebody directing traffic.
We have staffing that we will have, but at that point too, and here's where we're at with that. If someone comes in, if you come in there and you park crooked, what's my staff going to do? We are not police officers.
Well,
We will not get involved. And I understand, but I'm just saying.
Most people are reasonable. I mean,
But there's always going to be, what we're talking about,
I understand what you're
our
saying.
staff is not going to
But
be able.
it's going to be worse without staff. They're going to not, you're going to
I
have to.
understand that,
And
but
if
I'm-
you're charging, you got the money to pay to cover your costs for the staff or whatever, offset your argument. You just can't set the public on a grass lot in an event like that they've never been here and set them free and expect them to park where, like you want them to park, and to orient their cars where you make the max amount of parking that you want to get out of this lot. I just think you're going to need some supervision in there, that's all.
And I agree with that, but the problem, I would just say that supervision will have to be the police.
Well, you call police, if you got a town employee with a town shirt on, people are going to look at that and do the right thing. Coming out if they're drunk, maybe not, then you call the police, but.
But we have no authority. I can't stop anybody.
Well, that
As a
doesn't make
town
anybody,
employee-
it's not gonna make anybody feel comfortable about all the other concerns, about littering, about people drinking and that.
Well, littering, we will
all the
clean that
things
up
like
every day. Every day after the event, we do like we do now.
Yeah.
And after these events, the town is spotless. I mean, that's not,
But if we can't, if you're gonna say, oh, well, we can't supervise that, and we can't have some guarantee as residents
No,
in that neighborhood.
I said that it will have to be police
Yeah.
supervised. I have no authority
Yeah.
to stop anybody from doing anything, even on the street. Someone double parks here to go into your business. I can't do anything about it as a town employee.
We understand.
And,
All I'm saying is somebody on site to give them guidance to park where you want
And
to
we can
park,
do that,
to
but we-
maximize the amount of parking you're trying to get in there. And if you run into a problem, or your staff has to say, listen, buddy, you give me a lot of shit, I'm gonna call the police. And that usually will straighten them up.
One of the ideas we initially floated, but we haven't taken any further, was to work with the chamber during events and have them possibly put an attendant or a staff member there.
That's right.
And they could be there to help people.
Realistically,
Anybody just
maybe
to try
2
to
hours.
guide it, organize, keep the thing organized so it maximizes the use of the lot during the event. That's all.
And we will do the best that we can to address all of these.
Okay.
But we can't make guarantees about anything.
Can't guarantee nothing. I
Exactly.
them
Can't
what the
guarantee someone's not gonna park
All
in
I'm
the
saying is
middle of
have
Main
more
Street.
guidance in there,
So, but we will do the best to make sure that it doesn't happen. That's all that we can,
Well, that's all you can
that's
do.
all we can do.
If I
That's what
could just
it-
kind of recap your suggestions, just so make sure I got everything. So, Eric, you mentioned entrance grading, putting crusher rock at the entrance and exit, no overnight parking, directional lighting, bumpers, and no parking on west from Broad to Washington. Is that just a...
One question, this is the split rail fence, is that going to be put in year one? The split rail fence on the plan here?
We are exploring other options. We're exploring every option as of right now. We talked about having a road that would go post to post. We talked about fencing. We have to look into the fencing. Does the fencing get into our square footage and that type of, we have good questions that we're gonna take, and we'll have more meetings as a staff of the town, and we will address them in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, but I need to see something of order, like showing, hey, here is the boundary, so to speak, because otherwise, like Eric said, you can do it to you.
Oh, well, once we go to a pay system, assuming that is where we go, obviously, you don't want people
he said that was year
hopping
one.
out of the lot anywhere they want to.
He
or
said year
they'll
one, you
avoid
go to a
that.
pay system.
Yes, yeah.
So if year one, if you go to a pay system, you will have a boundary then?
We have to, otherwise people
Okay, so you
will
pull up
avoid,
the fence then?
yeah.
Okay.
You think about maybe as an option, just having posts with big nylon string, yellow, whatever.
Right.
I mean, I get it, you got 500 options being thrown
Yeah,
at you.
just something to show.
Yes.
This is the
Yes.
optimal, that's all.
Has there been any talks about having a shuttle for some of the, like handicapped spots to get them actually into town so they don't have to actually make, I know it's a short walk, but is there any conversations about a shuttle? Maybe like a
A
little
lot of
golf cart
our-
or something?
Sorry. A lot of our events, we actually do have shuttles, but they're coming from the schools. We do have shuttles, I know for most of the events where the casino bus is actually here and it shuttles them in from the school over Franklin. So
And that
there's-
service is donated by the casino.
Right.
So
That's
to
nice.
have something on a more regular and permanent basis would probably require a financial commitment on the.
Oh, yeah, I was thinking more like a golf cart, maybe, like a 4 or 6 seater, just to maybe, shuttle some people that maybe, have some, some mobility issues. I know it's not a long walk, but still,
Yeah,
versus a bus.
it would be a financial consideration that we have not
Right.
looked at it as yet.
Right, maybe year 2 or something, it could be explored.
Anybody else have any comments? Eric, what are you doing something there? Well, so what, and I'm sure this was discussed right up front, I mean, what are we talking about? Was this a concept review of a year one, like, are we approving a grass field with a bunch of?
That's just concept. We're not approving nothing.
Okay, we're just talking,
It's just, yeah,
we're just hashing things out, trying to come up with ideas, right? Exactly.
This isn't the process.
I think overall, we need it. So,
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any correct answer in town of where to get 110 parking spaces. There, unfortunately, there's going to be some downs with the ups. There's no other way. And I've always said that whatever happened if we lost the Taylor
bank parking, you know, that
Oh my
is
God.
70% of our town's parking. You know, that would be a nightmare, and I think it's great that the town took it on themselves to come up with a solution. And I get it, it ain't perfect. What do you want to do, spend $50 million on a parking garage? You know,
No.
there's just not a lot of land in this town.
The only other thing I will say, and I don't know if this is still on the table, but I wanted to bring it up here. You know, the mayor had asked me if I wanted to be on the subcommittee, which I'm for the parking subcommittee. I would prefer if we did it the same way we did with like the microtel, where we, you know, I would like the planning commission to, you know, I don't know, approve that, or be like, okay, obviously.
Have like
I
one,
care
have
a
like
lot
2 or
about
3
it.
people from the planning commission.
Yeah, maybe, I don't, you know, if anybody else cares to do it, you know, I have a bunch of insights, both from a landscape architecture perspective. You know, some of them may not be achievable, but I'd like to put them on the table, but I didn't want to do it without the rest of the commission.
Well, I would be interested in getting on the parking thing, because it's really becoming an issue to my life on Washington Street.
I mean, would you guys be apt to allowing multiple input from?
Yeah, they can definitely be invited to say, I mean.
Right.
I think
there's
the
only
key
two-
is we have to avoid a quorum of any kind.
Correct, yeah, so like at Microtel, we had 3, so that way we wouldn't have a quorum.
We have 2 council members of the mayor, and.
And the mayor does not count for it.
Correct.
Because he's non-voting.
Well, I'd like to step, I like that idea. I think it's, let's work through it together. And you're gonna probably have a list by the end of the summer of things that, I hope at the end of, when we go into the winter, we can convene a committee and really, you know, haggle through the positives or the negatives, whatever they may be. Because we're all gonna have positives and negatives with this, you know, and if we can learn through it, and in the meantime, have the grace that's required for us to be successful, that would be great. So, I think you're a good
Absolutely,
member.
100%. Yeah.
Has Mr. Eshin given you, the town, an option to purchase this at the end of this lease, or is this always going to be a leased property?
That's how the whole conversation
No, he's
started.
not.
Yeah.
Whole conversation started with the acquisition. But,
That was shut down pretty quick.
Supplementing retirement?
He likes some people. He wants
You know the rule, never sell paid off real estate, son.
So he's very receptive to having the town use this as a parking lot.
I've always felt that it's a reasonable location to do something. My vision is a type of grid system with grass, maybe even an apartment, kids park, kiddie park, and plant some trees and do a park-like atmosphere. If the town owned it, we can't put that kind of infrastructure in under these circumstances. But that's what I always envision would be a good use of that land. And I'm right there getting impacted by it. So I think we're just getting the best we can get for what we need right now, so.
But like a 100-year lease is on the table, or do you like something like that?
How do you spell
They signed 15,
condemnation?
right?
Yeah. No, I mean, I know you guys signed a 10-year lease,
Right.
but like, for example, our farm is on a piece of property that our landlord would sign a 100-year lease tomorrow, but they will never sell it to us.
Right.
In which case gives you, for something like this that it does for the town, you know.
Yeah, the time to
allow you be
invest.
like, okay, we can invest in it.
Yeah, you're invested. Right, amortize over that period of time.
Because I know a lot of the ideas I have, you know, are on that, like, what you would need to be able to invest in what you had. Otherwise, like grass, I had to bring up something else, but it's on the line of having a electronic parking sign, you know, having a grass lot with a bunch of poles and signage and temporary lighting, you know, as much as it does for, I don't want to call it a parking issue, because I think this parking lot is accommodating visitors, you know. And I'm so attached to this lot because I know the farmer's market comes up. I have never heard one of our farmer's market customers complain about parking in the town of Berlin. Events, a different story, you know, but the image of a grass lot with a bunch of parking signs seems not in character, keeping with the character of Berlin, you know, which I know is tough. It's a little-
Gotta start somewhere.
Yeah.
I think that's how I look at it. We have to start somewhere and find a way through this to make it work. Maybe plant some trees around the perimeter, if you have them at the end, do it. Some trees buffering it.
See, we beat that horse to death.
Well, you gotta keep beating it to death, because.
Well, the next thing you know, you're gonna need to pull the trees out, because you make another change, you gotta wait till they.
All right, so
till
you
the
chop
final-
them down,
the final.
and you do that shot. You know.
I think everybody's in agreement, this isn't the perfect solution, but it's a step closer to where we hope to be.
Charge enough parking fees so we can start a fund to buy it, see how
There you go.
things change in the future.
So real quick, the parking commission that we were discussing, is this just an ongoing?
Yeah, it will
group of
definitely
people?
be, yes.
Like, it's not going to stop at some, I mean, I get it, it could eventually, but it's not meant to stop in the next 6 months.
No, it's not something that's like a comprehensive plan subcommittee that we're about to
Got it.
form,
Cool.
where that's, going to be, just going to be exciting for you guys, I think, to go through that process. But no, this is something that we're really, we're going to need to meet in late fall, early winter to figure out what the plan is for.
And it goes
next year.
beyond this lot. I mean,
Yeah,
the parking lots we have to deal with, that the committee will deal with.
I mean, like you said, it makes sense, like, we're going to have to go through the summer, go, oh, that did not work.
Right.
Or, yeah, that worked great, and unfortunately, but fortunately, Eric's right there, so he can be the meat and potatoes of this whole problem.
I guess Eric and I will be the biggest voices on what's going on.
Correct, it's nice that you two are there, because you'll see what's going on.
Just like I'm the biggest voice on Harrison and Baker.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, personally, do you think it's going to alleviate anything over there, this lot?
I do. I do. I really do. Because they don't, brewery doesn't have enough parking to suit the demands.
Yeah, definitely in relation to.
And I think Tracks and Gags seems to be pivoting daily to what they're doing. But, so that has impacted Baker Street quite a tremendous amount. So no, I do believe it will help. And I think the brewery, for instance, they had a alumni event there recently. If they could tell folks, please park there, or if they have a wedding or something like that, I do believe. I don't think I'm being naive. It will help.
No, I think if they throw in an event and they said it'd be great if you guys can park here, you get 70% of the people that actually follow through.
This has just come to mind, but is there on the back side of the property where the ice house is there any gap in that building that you could get like a right of way through that, especially in relationship to the brewery, that would be a much more convenient access point through there and through a commercial property and I'm never around there when any usage is happening over there, but
That crossed my mind. I didn't say it either, but I was
I keep
thinking, could
forgetting
we
about
find
that.
that? Could we get an easement for those guys?
That would
Are you
fall
talking
back
about like
to
a
the
more
railroad
direct
track.
pedestrian
You
route
would have
from
to
the
have-
lot to the
and
brewery?
then-
Yeah.
We only own up,
Yeah.
we're leasing up to this side. They have 33 feet from the center on each side. And then you would have to go to the railroad to get a permission to address all that.
It's difficult.
So, yeah.
That
I mean, I'm not saying
that
no
was
to it,
my
I'm just
first thought in all this as
sharing
well,
that
was
we'd
that
have
that
to
would
go
be a
to the
great
railroad.
pedestrian route, but yeah, it would require the railroad to be. Not to say they might not be receptive.
Just a long process.
They just got a new owner.
Right, we
That
don't
we-
know, yeah.
That we've
that's-
never dealt with.
Exactly, we have no idea what,
But the past owner was very nice to deal
Yeah.
with. So,
What's with Tracks and Gaps got people all in the country?
Ed Banks' daughter,
yeah, she's very nice.
oh, is she at Banks' daughter? I didn't realize
She's
that.
the head of the railroad, she's the CEO.
So just
So
so
we have a direct.
I never realized that.
when the parking committee meets again,
Railroad track.
we should include invites to Eric and Pete. Would that be correct?
Or yes, Kathy McDonald.
I'm assuming.
I don't want to overload the committee with 1,000 people.
No, I mean, we're like two council.
Multiple
members.
voices is great, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. Anyone have anything else? You guys did.
We're good?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
So there's no public here, so no comments there. Any comments from the staff? No? Personally, I just want to welcome Ryan to the planning department. Officially, it's the first meeting, yes.
First one, yep.
So great to have you here, and we're finally up and running after 7 months. So thank you for that. Other than that, I don't have any comments. Does anyone else up here have anything?
What's our comprehensive plan?
What's that?
What's our comprehensive plan?
Comprehensive plan is there's money in this year's, next year's budget,
Right.
a good amount of money.
There is a committee, they will be reviewing the RFP. The RFP will be issued, the committee will review responses, talk to submitters, interview submitters, make a recommendation to the mayor and council for award of contract, work with the vendor. It'll be kind of a start to finish, starting with the draft RFP and working all the way through to the final comprehensive plan product.
And then with that, is a bulk of the lifting, like Ryan and her department with them, how involved does the planning commission come if we are having an RFP and a subcontractor come in to do most of the work?
Well, I'm going to be honest and tell you that I haven't been through this process myself. So I think that we're going to be a little bit dependent on the vendor to kind of direct us as to how this process works. But typically, I do know in a comprehensive plan review process, there is a good deal of public engagement. There's it's not going to happen overnight. I think we thought like 18 months to completion. Because you have to have time for that public input, you have to have time for the vendor to, compile that information and turn it into something useful and go from there.
So we're stuck.
Yeah, I'll like the initial that we had started with. Scratch that.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor? All right.
Your house.